I want to ask you something, and I want you to really sit with it for a second. Have you ever known a woman, maybe you're close to her right now, maybe she's in your past, and no matter what you did, no matter how patient you were, how kind you were, how honest you were, she still never fully let you in? Not really, not all the way. And maybe you've spent a lot of time asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Why won't she trust me? Or, this one hits hard. Is there something wrong with me? I have to tell you, there isn't. There really isn't. And by the end of this, I think you're going to understand what's actually going on with her. Not to excuse it, not to fix it, but to finally understand it and stop carrying guilt that was never yours to carry. So let's get into it. I want you to picture a specific woman for a moment. Maybe she's your partner. Maybe she's your mother. Maybe she's a coworker you've been trying to figure out for months. Maybe she's your best friend, or someone you thought was your best friend. She's impressive. She's sharp. She walks into a room and people notice. She can be funny, charming, and she can make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. Like there's real warmth there when she turns it on. But then something shifts, and you start noticing things. She never quite opens up, not all the way. The moment you get close, the moment things start feeling real and deep and honest, she pulls back. She gets cold. She questions you. She second-guesses everything you say. She can look you in the eye and still feel 1,000 miles away. And if you've ever tried to talk to her about her feelings, really talk, then you know. You know that look. The wall that goes up. The subject that changes. The silence that follows. Or, if you're less lucky, the explosion that follows. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yep. So here's what I want to explore today, because most people get this completely backwards. They think a narcissistic woman who doesn't trust anyone is like that because she's cold, arrogant, thinks she's better than everyone. That's not it. That's really not it. The reality is more complicated and more human. Narcissism, especially this closed-off, distrustful kind, almost always starts with pain, not arrogance, pain. Let me explain. Imagine a little girl growing up in a home where love wasn't steady, where she couldn't predict whether she'd be praised or criticized, where she got the message, directly or indirectly, that she wasn't quite enough. Maybe she was parentified, made responsible for adults' emotions way too early. Maybe she was compared constantly. Maybe she was emotionally neglected. Or maybe, and I want you to really hear this, someone she loved and trusted completely broke that trust, really broke it. And when that happens in a child's brain, the brain doesn't have the capacity to say, this adult is flawed and has failed me. Instead, a young brain makes it personal. It says, if the people who are supposed to love me most can hurt me this much, then no one is safe. No one can be fully trusted. Not ever. That's not a personality choice. That's a survival decision. A very understandable, very painful survival decision. And that belief doesn't just disappear when she grows up. It goes with her. It becomes the lens through which she interprets every relationship she will ever have. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, but lots of people have hard childhoods and they don't become narcissistic. That's fair. That's a legitimate thing to say. But here's the thing. Narcissism isn't just trauma happened. It's trauma plus specific coping strategies, plus a certain kind of internal wiring that says, I'll never be powerless again. So the wall came first. The coldness, the control, the distrust. Those came after. So what does that wound become? How does a survival decision turn into what we recognize as narcissism? Here's an analogy that makes it clearer. Think of narcissism as a suit of armor. Not metaphorical armor like confidence. I mean real armor. Thick, heavy, designed to block hits, designed to keep everything out. Now imagine a little girl who got hurt enough times that she built her own armor. But her armor isn't made of metal. It's made of control. It's made of rules. It's made of emotional distance. It's made of a carefully curated version of herself that looks impressive and self-sufficient, above needing anyone. The armor says, "I don't need you." But underneath that armor is someone who is desperate to be seen and loved, and terrified of what happens when she is. And over time, she forgets she's wearing armor. She wears it so long that she starts to believe the armor is her. That's when it becomes a personality structure. That's when we start talking about narcissistic personality disorder, NPD. And I want to be clear, in women, it often looks different than it does in men. Men with narcissistic traits can be more overt, loud, grandiose, obvious. Women are often covert, quieter, more subtle. The superiority is there, but hidden. The control is there, but dressed up as standards. The distrust is there, but framed as being careful or independent. And that's what makes it so confusing. So what does this look like in real life? Not on a checklist, just in lived experience. Here are the signs that tend to fly under the radar. Sign number 1, she tests you constantly. And the exhausting part is, she won't tell you she's testing you. She sets up invisible scenarios to see how you respond. She asks questions she already knows the answer to, just to see if you'll be honest. She cancels plans last minute, just to see if you'll get frustrated. Because to her, your frustration becomes proof that you're selfish. She watches your reactions like she's collecting evidence. Not because she's always calculating, but because in the world her brain built years ago, people always eventually show their true colors. She's trying to get there faster, before she gets too close. Sign number 2, she never fully commits, emotionally. Even in a committed relationship, even if she loves you, and she can love you fiercely, there's a part of her held back, in reserve, one foot out the door. Because some part of her is already prepared for this to fall apart. Because in her experience, things always fall apart. Sign number 3, vulnerability triggers anger or silence. If you try to have a deep emotional conversation, if you ask how she's really doing, you'll hit one of 2 responses. Anger, sudden sharpness, topic change, a twist where somehow you're the problem. Or silence, withdrawal, coldness, distance that can last for days. Why? Because real vulnerability feels to her like handing someone a weapon. She's done it before. She got hurt. Her brain said, "Never again," and it meant it. Sign number 4. Control is not a preference. It's a necessity. She needs control over the environment, over plans, over conversations, over the relationship. Not because she's bossy, because control equals safety. When things are predictable and she's steering, she feels safe. When things are unpredictable or someone else is steering, she feels that old terror, small, powerless, about to be hurt. So she controls what she can to keep that feeling from coming back. Sign number 5, projection. She accuses you of what she's afraid of in herself. She says you'll leave when she's the one who's emotionally checked out. She says you're dishonest when she's the one hiding things. She says you don't care when she's the one who can't express how much she cares. If you see this pattern often, it's not random. It's part of the system. Now here's the core. And I want you to stay with me because this is the part most people never fully grasp. Under the control, under the coldness, under the tests and walls, she is terrified, deeply terrified, of being abandoned, of being seen as weak, of letting someone in and having them discover the part of her she believes is unlovable, and then watching them leave. So what does she do? She leaves first. Or she pushes you until you do. She creates distance before you can. She finds reasons you're untrustworthy before you can prove you aren't. Here's what that looks like psychologically. She believes everyone eventually hurts me. So she behaves in ways that push people away. And when they finally leave, because they got exhausted, confused, drained, her brain says, "See, I knew it." And the belief gets stronger, and the walls get higher. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy, painful but consistent. Now I want to talk about something that's harder to spot, and that's covert narcissism. When people hear narcissism, they imagine someone loud and obviously self-obsessed. But covert narcissism is quieter. Sometimes it looks like the most sensitive person in the room. The covert narcissistic woman often positions herself as the misunderstood one, the one who gives more than she receives, the one who is always the victim, quietly, constantly, exhaustingly the victim. And she'll say she's fine. "No, I'm fine, really." But then she'll punish you for not magically reading her mind. And here's another major sign. She's hypersensitive to criticism. You can say something fair and kind, and it lands like an attack. Then comes the withdrawal, the cold silence. And you find yourself replaying every word you said, trying to figure out what you did wrong. Sound familiar? Yep. And there's often passive aggression. She won't say, "I'm upset." She'll disappear emotionally. One-word answers, heavy sighs, that charged silence that fills a room. And you feel guilty, but you don't even know what you're guilty of. And here's a hard truth. She genuinely believes she is the good one. Not always in a fake way, in a real way. Because her psychology needs that story to survive. If she had to fully face her role in the pattern, her armor would crack. And that feels like death to her system. Now let's talk about something people don't mention enough, how she relates to other women. Because the distrust isn't just with men or partners, it's everyone. And with other women, there's often an extra layer, competition. Not always obvious, often unconscious. She doesn't see another woman as a potential ally. She sees a potential threat, a rival, someone who might get more admiration. And in her mind, that means less for her. Scarcity mindset. So she can be warm and supportive one week, and then that woman gets a compliment, a promotion, attention, and something shifts. The warmth cools. Backhanded compliments appear. Support disappears right when it matters. Not always because she planned it, but because her nervous system reads other people's wins as danger. And the saddest part? Even the women who could understand her most, she keeps at arm's length. Because closeness feels dangerous. Being truly known feels terrifying. Now, if you strip all of this down, what does she actually want? I have to tell you, it's heartbreakingly simple. She wants to be loved, really loved. Not for the impressive version of herself, not for the curated version, but for the real her, under the armor. She wants someone she can trust, fully, completely. That's what she's been looking for her entire life. And the tragedy is, even when that person shows up, she often can't receive it. Her brain won't let her. It says, "This isn't real. There must be a catch. No one loves like this. They'll leave." So she pushes, and they leave because she pushed them. And her belief gets reinforced again. Now the question most of you are holding is, can she change? Here's the honest answer. Change is possible, but it's not common. And it requires one condition that nobody else can manufacture. She has to want it. Not because she got caught, not because someone threatened to leave, not because she wants to manage the situation. She has to want it because she sees her own pattern and realizes, this armor isn't keeping me safe anymore. It's keeping me alone. That moment of real self-awareness, real accountability, is the beginning. Some women get there through long-term therapy with someone who understands this structure. Some get there through a loss that cracks the armor. And some don't get there at all. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Okay, but what do I do with the person who's in my life right now? I get that. Let me be practical. First, you cannot fix her. You can't love her enough to heal what was broken before you arrived. I know that's hard to hear, especially if you love her. But the attempt to fix her will cost you enormously. Your energy, your sanity, your self-respect. What you can do is protect yourself. Boundaries. Clear, consistent, calm. Not as punishment, not as a power move, as self-respect. Because she will push limits, sometimes without even realizing it, because her whole system is built on testing limits. Second, don't get pulled into the chaos cycle. She often thrives on reaction, arguments that go nowhere, confusion that keeps you emotionally off balance. If you stay calm, steady, present, grounded, and refuse to be destabilized, you remove fuel from the mechanism. Not to punish her, but because it's the only way you don't lose yourself inside her storm. And third, measure reality, not potential. Don't fall in love with the version of her you see when she's warm. Pay attention to the version of her that shows up when you ask for closeness, honesty, accountability. That's the real relationship. Now, a quick word to those of you who are listening and thinking, some of this sounds like me. If you're willing to look at this honestly, that matters. That's rare. That's the first step, and it means something different can be possible. Let me bring this all together. A narcissistic woman who doesn't trust anyone did not wake up and choose this. She was shaped by pain she didn't ask for, by experiences that happened before she had the tools to understand them. She built armor to survive. She learned control because once everything felt out of control. She stopped trusting because the people she trusted most made trust feel dangerous. She learned to leave before being left, to push before being pushed. And then she wore that armor so long, she forgot it was armor. She started to believe it was her personality. That's the tragedy. Not that she can't feel, but that she feels so intensely and is so terrified of what happens when she shows it that her only strategy is to show the world the opposite. Understanding this doesn't mean you excuse the damage. It doesn't mean you stay in a situation that's eroding you. It doesn't mean you sacrifice yourself hoping you can heal her. But it does mean you stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" when the truth is, the story started long before you got there. And maybe the next time you look at her, you see past the armor. You see the wound. Not because it's your job to fix it, but because seeing it changes something. Seeing it is the beginning of clarity. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.